Richard Crouse.
It's science fiction, I guess, but I didn't walk away from it thinking, oh, what a great science fiction movie, because I think like all good science fiction, it's not really about the idea as much as it is about the people and how the people exist within the idea.
That's exactly right, and I think that's what is really exciting about Duncan Jones as a filmmaker. I think he's really taken this genre and he's really brought a resurgence to it, and you're absolutely right. It's not just sort of a journey of the mind, but this is also kind of a journey of the heart, and he makes sure that he takes a really large idea, but also makes certain that it's infused with a lot of character-driven dilemma, and that's what we have with this, and it's kind of a real perfect combination of sci-fi and drama.
Yeah, I thought so too. Now tell me a little bit about when you first saw the script, because when you read the first few pages, then you must have gone, hey, wait, it's happening again. And then you go through, because it's sort of a Groundhog Day kind of format with more explosions, I guess. But tell me a little bit, when you first saw it, was it, did you get it right away, or did you have to read it a couple of times?
You know, I did read it a couple of times, but what it did do is definitely grabbed me right off the bat, because you know, I think those first 10 pages, it's very Hitchcock in that way, and it begs for you to keep reading and reading and reading. And I thought, oh my gosh, is this going to fall apart in the third act? Please tell me it won't, because I like it so much. And it didn't. And from an actor's perspective, as you know, it's the source code is it's a top secret government program that allows a person to live the last 8 minutes of someone else's life. So essentially, we relive the same 8 minutes over and over again. And from an actor's point of view, that was really intriguing to me, is how can we do the same thing but make it a little bit different each time and nuance it. And that was a really fun exercise to do.
And I guess, I mean, it's on the page for sure, but also you have to really trust the director on this one, just to make sure that it's not going to be repetitious or it's not going to get stale very quickly.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's a really tricky film, and just for continuity's sake, but it was really one of the probably most important film that I had to work with in such close contact with Duncan, and in shaping each specific source code to make sure that it tonally made sense, that it wasn't boring, that it was just as engaging, and that each time we were achieving you know, a piece of the puzzle, right, so that it was really exciting for the audience to kind of put the pieces together, puzzle together, and that was sort of our goal with each source code, and I think it works.
Well, also very important when you have a film like this or a story like this, that's all about like little bits of the puzzle, and each time they go back and revisit this 8 minutes, you learn something else. It's really important to not cheat the audience in any way. Like, it's important so that when, I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but when things are finally resolved, when we get to the end of the movie, the viewer doesn't go, I would never have been able to figure that out or to see that coming or whatever, because it's got to all make sense.
That's exactly right. You know, audiences nowadays are so savvy, and it's really difficult to make any kind of film in any genre where the audience is like, oh, well, I haven't seen that before. This is the type of movie where you're going to see it, and you're going to figure it out along with the characters. But then you're going to want to see it again, because you're going to go, oh, that's right, I missed that. Oh, that's right, I missed that. I saw that. And it was fun shooting this movie, because we were doing the choreography, you know, just for all these little bits and pieces to make sense, and it was fun. So I'm glad that you got it.
Are there challenges involved as an actor, because most of the film takes place inside a train? You know, you're in for a lot of the movie, you're sitting opposite Jake Gyllenhaal talking to him. What sort of challenges does that present, or is it, do you just make sure that the dialogue is sparkling enough, or whatever? What do you have to bring to it to keep people wanting to watch?
You know, that definitely is a challenge. You know, you're wearing the same clothes, you're wearing, you know, it's the same dialogue, and it was literally, you know, it's just very subtle changes, you know, just body language, or, you know, the first source code, you know, my character's a little bit more mysterious. You might not know, right, kind of Hitchcock-esque, you know, to it. And then there's other source codes where they're a little bit vulnerable. So you want to be able to emotionally keep the movie going. So it was just sort of changing the mood more than anything, as opposed to changing the sets.
Right. I suppose there's not a lot of room to change anything once you've started shooting, because it is all sort of locked into one another.
That's exactly right. The first day of shooting, the one luxury we did have, I have to say, is that we shot it chronologically. So that was really unique. It makes a huge difference. But that first source code, that first day, wow, we spent hours trying to, because we knew anything that we did was going to be set in stone, as you know. From that day forward. So just trying to get the choreography, the timing of all the different actors on that train car was so specific, with the coffee spill, with the ticket, with the, it was really, really tricky. And we were pulling our hair out. And I think we were thinking, oh my gosh, is it going to be like this every day? Because it's going to be tricky. But once we got the ball rolling that first day, everything was set in stone. So then we were able to just continue on that path, but then just veer off a little bit here and there.
Right. Tell me a little bit about working with Duncan Jones, because I loved Moon. I thought Moon was terrific. And, there's very definite parallels between the two movies, shot in confined spaces and, a science fiction but still a very human story. Tell me a little bit about working with him and what kind of director he is.
Well, he's fantastic to work with. I mean, I think, he's truly a real visionary, and the one thing that I can say that I loved and really appreciated about him was that he storyboarded everything. And, that doesn't really happen anymore, really. I very seldom work with a director that has the actual storyboards. And for me, as a person who isn't necessarily inclined to even maybe necessarily go see a sci-fi film, I was really connected to the emotional aspect and the emotional and physical dilemmas that each of the characters have in this movie. So when he would say to me, okay, there's going to be a big explosion then, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to, I was like, oh, okay. But then he would actually be able to show it to me, and I would be able to follow this story, and I could actually really tonally kind of understand what he was getting at. So I think just from an acting point of view, I really appreciated that. And he's one of the most collaborative directors that I've worked with. Jake and Duncan and I would huddle before each source code, and we would figure out what our goal was for each source code, and then we would go about attaining that. And he was so fun. It felt like a student film oftentimes. He just has no ego whatsoever. He's really open to improvisation, to all these different things. He has a great energy to him. And I just think he has such a long career ahead of him, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to work with him.
It's interesting when I hear that about him, and I'm so happy to hear that about him, because of the way that he must have grown up. I mean, he's been famous since he was a child, under a different name, but but famous since he was a child, a very famous father and a mother as well. And so it must be, it's an interesting way to grow up and then finally branch off and do something different and be such an original and such a visionary is unusual, I think.
Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, he's definitely had a very unique upbringing, and for someone to then carve out a path that is very, very much their own is really impressive.
You said you're not necessarily someone that would go see a sci-fi movie. You went on to explain that you enjoyed the humanity in this.
Although I did see Moon. I'm a really big Sam Rockwell fan, so I did see that, and then, of course, I was lucky to get this.
Well, I think the great thing about a lot of sci-fi that we're seeing today, like Inception and stuff, because I'm not a huge sci-fi guy either, but I like the human stories that are being woven into them. So it's different. There's not Martians, and there's not things that you can't really understand.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think oftentimes with sci-fi, it really, you have to suspend your belief a little bit here and there, and it's certainly thought-provoking, and you kind of leave the theater pondering things, but this, I think, is great, and I think that's what's so great about Duncan and what he does with his particular films, as he did in Moon, is like he really infuses character-driven stories that are really, you really have characters that are struggling with the actual physical space that they're in, or emotionally they're struggling. And you don't see that very much in sci-fi. And so I think he's got this sort of new, fresh perspective on it. And I think it's great.
Well, I think since Inception has come along and shown that things don't have to be based on video games and stuff, and can still become a huge hit and be a little challenging.
Yes. That
we're going to see different kinds. It always takes a little while, but we're going to see different kinds of movies, like Source Code, like maybe the Adjustment Bureau, I guess, could be an example of that as well.
I agree. I think, perhaps it'll be a new trend, right?
Yeah. And that must be exciting for you. I mean, you must get offered such a wide spectrum
do.
of things, right?
I do get offered a wide variety of things, and I really appreciate that because I want to have a diversified career. You know, I'm a bit of a drama queen, and I love comedy. I'm a total goofball, but I love action. You know, so these are all those I like to see all those movies in the theater. You know, and that was one of the things that appealed to me about sci-fi or this particular film, Source Code, is that it wasn't something that I had done in the past, and I thought, wow, if I'm going to go on that endeavor, I want to go with Duncan Jones, you know. So, but yeah, I'll continue to hopefully, be dabbling in all the different genres.
Yeah, what kind of thing have you done or have you not done that you'd like to do?
I would love to do a great psychological thriller.
Yeah.
I would love to, but those are really tricky to find. You know, I read a lot of them because I really do want to do one, and they're really, really good, really, really good, really, really good. And then all of a sudden, the third act comes around, and he's like, "Oh no, that old chestnut," you know. Right. But definitely, that's something that I would like to do.
Yeah. Well, congratulations,
Richard Crouse.